What is startup in your opinion? A startup is a business that is just running and apply technological innovation to run a core business and solve a problem in society by utilizing technology. A startup can then become a unicorn category if the corporate value exceeds $1 billion or equivalent to 14 trillion rupiah, exchange rate of 14,000 rupiah. Startup may not be able to success even become unicorn without investors who are called angel investor or funding angels. Angels investors are the first to invest and dare to take risk on the concept of startup products, provided that other investors have not dared to do so. Startup companies in Indonesia began to develop after there was support from the growth in the number of internet users in 2015, which had reached 122.7 million users. In addition, internet users in the Southeast Asia region are also growing, thereby contributing to the development of startup companies in Southeast Asia. The Creative Economy Agency estimates that startup companies in the creative industry in Indonesia will individually be able to contribute 12% of the gross domestic product or GDP with an absorption of 13 million workers, both directly and indirectly involved. Give 5 examples of startup companies founded in Indonesia. The development of startup in Indonesia goes hand in hand with the growth of the internet from year to year. Internet users are getting easier and increasing every year, becoming a great opportunity for startup founders to develop their business. According to startup ranking data, Indonesia has more than 2,100 startups and ranks 5th in the world. Several startups already exist at the unicorn level, such as Goto, Bukalapak, JNT Express, Traveloka, OVO, Sendix, and Ajaib. Meanwhile, in 2019, Gojek was included in the Decacorn list and became the first Indonesia startup at the level. Difference between startup and SME. What are the difference between a startup and a small business? There are some difference between these two types of business and some important differences. When we hear the word startup, the first thing that usually comes up is Silicon Valley technology companies that are leading the way in innovation. Then we think of a small business, perhaps the first thing that comes to mind is the small shops in the town that are run by a family. The reality is the most business don't fit is stereotype. But there's something in between. Here's how to tell the difference between a startup and a small business. Business growth. Startups are designed to experience rapid growth. Most startups start out serving only a small part of the new market, then grow their business along the way. Meanwhile, SME also focus on growth but not as far as startups. SME are built on the principle of generating the large possible revenue from the start while keeping expenses as low as possible. Business funding. These two types of business can be distinguished by how they are financed. A startup is usually a company that is backed by funds from investors. Meanwhile, SMEs rely on loans from banks, friends, and family to fund their businesses in the field. Business risk. Startups usually start with the founder's desire to find a service, product, or platform that can attract an audience and make a profit. Building a product or service from scratch takes time, a large investment, and a lot of focus and concentration. SME also have risks, but what makes their business less risky than startup is that the founders of SME usually have a proven business model. Also, because small business are not focused on growth, they don't run the risk of growing too fast.
Facts that show the development of startups in Indonesia include: the first one is merger of Gojek and Tokopedia, two large companies whose total post-collaboration contribution reached 1.9% to 2.1% of the national GDP. The second is the emergence of a new unicorn in 2021, namely online pajak. Second is there are 8 Indonesia startup businesses that are included in Forbes Asia 100 to watch list, namely Bobo Box, Bow Bakery, Dekoruma, Evermos, Autoclick, Populix, Privy ID, and Site. The sectors are diverse and some have high potential for further development, such as the fintech, health tech, edutech, logistic, e-commerce, new retail, and agri-tech sectors.
Next, we came to the startup companies in Indonesia. So there are several sectors of startup businesses in Indonesia, such as financial, e-commerce, logistic and ride-hailing, agricultural, retail and food, education, transportation, media, advertisement, education, healthcare, and many more. So here we have 4 big company of startup in Indonesia. The first is Gojek. Gojek is a startup company on transportation sectors, and it was first present in Indonesia on October 13, 2010 and was founded by Nadiem Makarim, which now is a Minister of Education in Indonesia. Next, Indonesian startup is one of the online shopping sites, which is Tokopedia. It has been successful since it was officially launched on August 17, 2009 under the auspice of PT Tokopedia, founded by William Tanuwijaya and Leontius Alva Edison on February 6, 2009. It became the first Indonesian and Southeast Asian startup company to receive funding of $100 million. Next is another successful Indonesian startup in the health sector is Halodoc. It's founded in 2016 by Jonathan Sudarta. So Halodoc provides easy access to healthcare solution. Here you can get access to doctors, health insurance, laboratories to pharmacy service through Halodoc. Next we have here is OVO. It is running in financial sectors. So OVO was originally founded by Lipo Group and started operating in 2017 in Indonesia. OVO received the title of unicorn in 2019. The company founded by Lipo Group has succeeded in becoming one of the digital wallet applications that are in demand by the people of Indonesia. So this is the first example of big startup in Indonesia, and this first startup is run in 4 different sectors. So Gojek is in transportation, Tokopedia in e-commerce, Halodoc in healthcare, and OVO in financial. Here are another example of startup in Indonesia. So Indonesian really have a lot of startup business. Now we will talk about the example here. We have Kopi Kenangan. It is running in food tech and retail. Next is Traveloka and Ticket.com. It is for transportation and accommodation. And Bobo Box is also for accommodation. Next for education, we have Ruang Guru and Kuiper. And for financial, we have Kredivo, Investri, Dana, and Bibit. And Alu Dokter is for health. And next, Happy Fresh and Sayur Box is in agricultural sectors. We also have Kita Bisa in crowdfunding, and there are Hijab and Sosiala also in e-commerce, Female Daily in media, and the Express in logistic and ride-hailing. And there are many more startups in Indonesia. So we will jump into the next discussion. But before that, there is a question. So, what is unemployment? Based on your answer before, why the unemployment rate in Indonesia is still high? So guys, after you answered the question before, now we will talk about the unemployment in Indonesia. And now we have the graph from BPS about workforce, employed and unemployment in Indonesia from August 2020 to August 2021. So first is about the workforce. In August 2020, the total number of workforce is 139.22 million people. And next, in February 2021, the total number of workforce in Indonesia is in 139.81 million people. Then for August 2021, the total number of workforce is 140.15 million people. The change of workforce in August 2020 to August 2021 is 1.40%, with the total number of 1.93 million people. And for the change from February 2021 to August 2021, it is 0.24%, which is 0.34 million people. The second data here is employed. So for the employed in August 2020, it is 128.45 million people, and in February 2021, it is 131.06 million people, and in August 2021, it is 131.05 million people. So for the change, there's an increase in August 2020 to August 2021, which is 2.02%, with the total number of 2.60 million people. And for the change on February 2021 to August 2021, there's a decreased number, with the total percent is minus 0.01%, and the total of people is minus 0.01 million people. The third is the most important that we will talk here is unemployment. So for August 2020, it is on 9.77 million people, and in February 2021, it is 8.75 million people, and in August 2021, it is 9.10 million people. The change in August 2020 to August 2021 for unemployment, it is minus 6.82%, with the total number is minus 0.67 million people. And for the change in February 2021 to August 2021, there is a little bit increase, which is 4.07%, with the total number is 0.35 million people. Even though there is an increase of unemployment in February 2021 to August 2021, but the total number of it is not more than the unemployment in August 2020, so there is still a decrease in unemployment on August 2020 to August 2021. So the composition of the workforce in August 2021 is consists of 131.05 million people who are working and 9.10 million people are unemployed. When compared to August 2020, it happened an increase in the number of the workforce by 1.93 million people. The working resident experienced an increase of 2.60 million people, and unemployment down by 670,000 people. When compared to condition in February 2021, the number of the workforce increased by 340,000 people, and the working population fell by 10,000 people, and the unemployment rose by 350,000 people. Now we jump into another question. So give a brief explanation about the influence of startups in overcoming unemployment problems in Indonesia based on your opinion. This is the startup contribution in providing job opportunities in Indonesia. These startup companies help the government in reducing the unemployment rate in Indonesia by improving the quality of human resources. Gojek, Tokopedia, Bukalapak, and Traveloka are clear evidence of the success of startup companies from Indonesia whose presence is more important in today's digital era. With so many millennials entering the world of startup business, it will open up more job opportunities that can reduce unemployment.
Example of startup contribution. The first one is Tokopedia. Tokopedia's internal data records that there are now more than 11 million sellers on its platform, and almost 100% of micro, small, and medium enterprises. In Indonesia, we call it UMKM. Local MSMI at Tokopedia consists of makers or producers and resellers. Tokopedia maintains the availability of job opportunities through the use of technology platforms. The second startup is Gojek. Currently, Gojek has more than 2 million motorcycle taxi partners, and Gojek now has as many as 900,000 merchants. In 2021, Gojek and Tokopedia companies merged and known as Goto Group. PT Goto Gojek Tokopedia Tbk will give its shares to 600,000 Gojek driver partners in the Mutual Cooperation Shares Program. Startups play an important role in the country's economy. The first one is development of innovation in various business sectors. These innovations are also driven by the availability of startup actors in seeing opportunities to overcome various problems in society through technological solutions. The problems that are solved also make the business model that is created not only covers consumer directly, business to consumer, but also includes fellow business people, business to business, depending on the product or service owned. Second is encourage the nation's economic independence. The presence of technological innovation through startup products and services in various sectors does not only help the community's economic activities on a micro basis. When viewed at a micro level, the digital economy also contributes significantly to Indonesia's GDP. According to INDEF research, the digital economic has contributed 5.5% or around 814 trillion to Indonesia's GDP in 2018. Based on the same research, the digital economic sectors has also helped to create around 5.7 million new jobs. It can be seen, slowly but surely, the digital economy has also made a positive contribution in encouraging economic progress in Indonesia. The last is encourage equal distribution of the digital economic in all regions. For example, is contributing to the regional economy through digitizing traditional markets. Did you think startup give a good impact on Indonesian economic growth?
So next for this topic from startup that impact Indonesian economic growth is tax policy for startup companies in Indonesia. So guys, startup need a special tax treatment in order to grow their business. The imposition of taxes for startup company, if the company has been pioneering for 5 years or after the company has been record income, there are several rules that must be understood for startup company founders. And there are several rules about that. The first one rules is value added tax or VAT, or we call it PPN for startup. When a startup is appointed as perusahaan kena pajak or PKP, it is certain that the company has an obligation to pay VAT. In fact, startups that have a turnover of under 4.8 billion rupiah have been given the convenience of being exempt from VAT payment. However, startups also are still required to pay income tax of 0.5% of gross income. And the second rule is startup company is free of tax relief on startup services. Keep in mind that the startup can be taxed if they get income from other party. If startup still provide free services, they are still required to pay taxes. In this case, guys, the tax officer charge a tax of 10% of the server maintenance cost incurred by the startup itself. And the third rules is startup can be subject to pajak penghasilan, or we call it PPH, if they are the terminal. PPH is one of the taxes that must be paid by taxpayers, including startups also. Every startup that has an income below 4.8 billion rupiah can choose not to become a PKP. However, startup will still be subject to final income tax of 0.5% of their gross income. Then, if the startup is still losing money, it is given the option to become a PKP, and then it is subject to PPH worth to 25% of net income and does not have to pay a penny when it loses. And the next rules, or the fourth rules, is startups are encouraged to use a business account. If a startup use a personal account for business purposes to avoid taxation, then it is wrong action and is detrimental to the company itself, because if it is tracked by a tax officer, it can receive a sanction. Therefore, in order to avoid these sanctions, companies are recommended to have a special account for business interests. And the last rules, or the five rules, is the startup business model is recognized. Directorate General Pajak, or we call it DJP, certainly recognize various type of company, including startups in Indonesia. Therefore, the DJT has determined taxes for startup businesses. The taxes imposed are VAT and PPH.
From the explanation above, what are the criteria for a taxable company?
Next topic is the advantage of startup company in Indonesia. Startup businesses really take advantage of internet technology, which will make your businesses will not be limited by distance. Everyone in the world can see what you are selling. Very different if you open a conventional business that is in one place only. Of course, the target market will be less and its geographical location which cannot cover all the areas. And also if you can see the picture, the e-commerce di Indonesia yang paling banyak dicari pada tahun 2017 itu ditempati oleh aplikasi e-commerce yaitu Lazada. And next is still about the advantage, guys. Your achievements are immediately visible. The advantage of a startup businesses is that your achievement will be immediately visible if this will be something profitable. Profitable if you excel, your business will be successful quickly. Therefore, being in the startup businesses, companies or business will complete to show this advantage and achievement. And also McKinsey in his report entitled is Unlocking Indonesian Digital Opportunity also estimate that the shift to the digital realm will increase economic growth in Indonesia to 150 billion dollars by 2025. The report also states that 73% of internet users in Indonesia access the internet via smartphone, and this number is expected to continue to grow in the next 5 years. And the massive use of smart cellular phone will also be one of the factors supporting the growth of the e-commerce industry in Indonesia. This is why many startups are created and developed in Indonesia, especially startups based on technology or the digital. And next is the question, guys. I give you 3 minutes to answer the question. From the advantage described above, what do you think about the sector that you might be interested in yourself, and what the reason? So guys, after you guys answer the question is about the chosen sectors that you have interested, it's also connected in our next topic is how startup bring in investor in Indonesia. Minister of Communication and Information is Rudi Antara had said that the digital economy in Indonesia would reach 130 billion US dollar or 1,831 trillion rupiah in 2020. This would contribute 11% of Indonesia's gross domestic product, or we also know and call GDP. And the next, the flow of investment into technology or digital-based startup actually experienced significant growth. In fact, that the number of startup and total funding during the COVID-19 pandemic exceeded the pre-pandemic period based on research conducted by Scale PR, a digital communication company. Investment funds channeled by investor to startup company in the first semester of 2029 is increased to 91%. And also, if you guys can see the diagram or the picture here, the research noted that the number of startups in Indonesia that receive funding in the first semester or the first quarter in 2021 was 104 startups, or an increase of 40.5% from 74 startups in the same period in 2020. This figure also increased to 53% from the same period. In the 2019, the total funding obtained by the 104 technology-based company in January to June 2021 reached 3.8 billion US dollar, and also up to 91% from 2 billion US dollar. In the first half of 2020, the valuation of this funding also increased 216% from 1 to 2 billion US dollar in the first half of 2019. It is said by the Scale PR research published in Jakarta. Next is there are several sectors that the investor really interested by the startup company in Indonesia. So I'm gonna explain it, guys. The first sector is financial technology, or we call it fintech sector. The fintech sector dominate the number of startups that receive funding. At least 30 fintech receive funding with a total of 648.28 million US dollar. The two investment platforms are at the top of funding in the fintech sector. We also know that, we heard that every time maybe, there are namely Bibit and Ajaib with 95 million US dollar and 19 million US dollar, respectively, for a Series B and Series A. Meanwhile, Sendit, the fintech that support payment infrastructure, which recently held the title, the unicorn race, to 64.6 million US dollar in funding for its series B round in the first quarter of this year. And the second sector, or the next sector, is logistic. So guys, the logistic company like, for example, GNT Express managed to secure a jumbo funding of around 2 billion US dollar in April 2021. JNT Express also was founded by former Oppo official, namely Jet Li and Tony Chen. The research from CB Insight also named JNT Express as the first unicorn company from Indonesia in 2021. Other logistics sector that achieved high funding were Cepat Express. I know that we may be using that many times, and for 150 million US dollar, and the shipper for 65 million US dollar. And the last or the third sector that the investor very interested in Indonesian startup company is the e-commerce. So guys, the second large funding was obtained by the local market company, which is Bukalapak. Or prior to realizing the initial public offering or IPO, Bukalapak had pocket funding of 234 million US dollar from global giant Microsoft, endowment company GIC, MTech Group, BRI Ventures, and the last one is Mandiri Capital Indonesia. If we talk about the quarter one before, next we gonna talk about the quarter two or the second quarter in 2021. In the second quarter of 2021, investor will also look to the e-commerce sector in Indonesia. This sector achieved a total funding of almost 600 million US dollar, the highest among other sector. In addition to Bukalapak, the agritech platform Tani Hoop received fresh funding of 65.5 million US dollar in the Series B round, and the beauty care marketplace. The girls maybe know about this startup. We call that Sociola, that achieved funding of 56.5 US dollar. So the next question is, so guys, after you heard about all the explanation that we are give to you, in your opinion, is it worth it for a startup company in Indonesia or not?
The last question is, what if there is no startup in Indonesia? Explain the impact on economic aspect.